3 weeks ago, my phone vibrated on the kitchen counter while I was rinsing a coffee mug before work. I didn't rush to check it. I already knew who it would be. When I picked it up, the message was from my stepmother, Karen. Be at the house Friday night. The place needs to be cleaned before the weekend. Don't be late. There was a pause. Then another message came through. And don't start with excuses. I read it once, then again, and set the phone face down. I didn't reply. I stood there for a moment, listening to the hum of the refrigerator and the traffic outside my apartment window. I remember noticing how calm I felt. That surprised me. There was one detail I didn't understand yet. A confirmation email sitting unopened in my inbox. I wouldn't look at it until later. Growing up, I never expected to become the person everyone relied on to keep things running. When I was 16, my mother passed away after a long illness. The house went quiet, in a way that never really reversed. My dad and I moved through those years carefully, like we were afraid of breaking something fragile between us. 2 years later, he met Karen. They married quickly. Her son, Luke, moved in soon after. From the beginning, there were lists, chores written on the fridge in neat handwriting, things that somehow always landed under my name. Dishes, laundry, errands. Luke was younger, and Karen said he needed space to just be a kid. I learned early not to argue. I learned how to finish homework at the kitchen counter while wiping it down, how to fold towels exactly the way Karen liked them, how to stay useful without being noticed. My dad didn't intervene. He wasn't unkind, he just stayed quiet. When Luke grew older, nothing changed. He got new things, new shoes, new hobbies. I got responsibility. When relatives visited, Karen would say things like, "She's a big help," in the same tone someone might use for a neighbor's kid. I remember once overhearing her tell a friend that I was reliable, at least. I didn't know how to respond to that, so I didn't. By the time I left for college, the pattern was settled. Calls came when something needed to be handled. A lock to check, a room to clean, a favor that somehow became expected. If I hesitated, Karen's voice sharpened. If I said yes, nothing else was said at all. After college, I moved to a different city and built a quiet life for myself. I worked in marketing, long hours, tight deadlines, the kind of job where you learn to stay composed even when everything feels urgent. My family didn't ask much about it. Karen still called like my schedule belonged to her. That house they kept calling about wasn't even hers. It was a small ranch outside Boise that had belonged to my grandmother, Helen. When she passed, she left it to me. No speech, no explanation, just paperwork. I took care of it on weekends. I paid the taxes, I fixed what broke, and I let them use it. I told myself it was easier that way. So when Karen texted me that morning about cleaning before their trip, I didn't argue. I didn't explain. I just set the phone down and finished my coffee. Later that afternoon, I opened the email I'd ignored earlier. The subject line was simple: booking confirmed. I closed the laptop slowly and sat there for a while, letting the quiet settle. Then I waited. The ranch had always smelled like dust and pine when you opened the front door. Even after years, that never changed. My grandmother used to say it was the scent of things holding together. I believed her. After she passed, I drove out there alone the first time. The house was quiet, in a different way than my childhood home had been. Calm, intentional. I remember standing in the kitchen, sunlight cutting across the floorboards, and realizing that nothing there asked anything of me. That feeling didn't last once Karen and Luke started using it. They treated the ranch like a free weekend escape. No calls ahead, no check-ins. I'd arrive afterward to find muddy shoes by the door, empty bottles in the sink, blankets left in a heap on the couch. Once, a cabinet hinge hung loose for weeks because someone else would handle it. That someone was always me. I told myself it was temporary, that if I stayed reasonable, things would stay manageable. I kept a small notebook in the glove compartment of my car. Dates, repairs, receipts. Not because I planned to confront anyone, but because that's how I've always organized stress. Quietly, on paper. Karen never thanked me. She'd walk through the house, pointing out what still needed attention. Luke would bring friends without warning. My dad would arrive later, avoid eye contact, and offer to talk to them sometime. He never did. At work, my days were structured. Clear expectations, clear consequences. I learned how systems worked, how silence could be strategic, how documentation mattered more than emotion. When a client missed a deadline, there was a record. When an account changed hands, there was a process. At home, there was none of that. The calls came during meetings. The texts arrived late at night. Can you swing by the ranch? We're thinking of heading up. Make sure the fridge is stocked. I started letting the phone ring, not out of anger, out of fatigue. One afternoon, after a 12-hour day, I drove to the ranch because Karen insisted something was wrong with the water pressure. I found the issue in 10 minutes. Someone had left an outdoor hose running again. Luke shrugged when I mentioned it. Didn't think it mattered. That night, I sat at the small dining table and looked at the notebook. It was full now. Maintenance costs, cleaning supplies, fuel, time. I didn't feel upset. I felt clear. I began locking the gate when I wasn't there. I didn't announce it. I didn't explain. Karen noticed immediately. Her voicemails grew sharper. Luke sent short messages, all attitude, no questions. My dad said nothing. The week before their planned weekend trip, Karen called and told me to come over. Not asked, told. Her tone was flat, rehearsed. I knew what it was about before she said anything. When I arrived, the house felt staged. Karen sat upright on the couch. Luke leaned back, phone in hand. My dad hovered near the doorway. No one offered me a seat. She outlined the weekend like a checklist, what needed to be cleaned, what needed to be stocked. Then she added, almost casually, that I wouldn't be staying there. "This is family time," she said. "Not for help." No one reacted when she said it. That was the part that landed hardest, the silence. I looked at my dad. He didn't meet my eyes. I nodded once. I didn't argue. I didn't raise my voice. I said I understood, because in that moment, I did, completely. I left shortly after. The drive back felt longer than usual. My hands were steady on the wheel. My thoughts were not racing. They were lining up. That night, back in my apartment, I opened my laptop and pulled up the travel site again. I didn't browse. I searched with purpose. Distance, availability, confirmation. When the booking finalized, I closed the screen and sat there in the dim light of my living room. The phone buzzed once on the table. I didn't pick it up. I already knew what it would say. The morning I left, I packed quietly. Just a carry-on. Nothing that needed a second thought. I watered the plant by the window, took out the trash, and locked the door behind me. The routine mattered. It kept everything steady. At the airport, I moved through security on autopilot. Shoes off, laptop out. No rush. My phone buzzed twice while I waited at the gate. I didn't look. I watched planes taxi across the tarmac and listened to the low murmur of announcements echoing through the terminal. Once I was seated, I turned my phone to airplane mode. That was a choice, not avoidance. A decision. The flight was long enough for everything to settle. Somewhere over the Pacific, I pulled out the notebook I usually kept in my bag. The same one I'd used for years. I didn't write anything new. I just reviewed what was already there. Dates, costs, notes about damage, times I'd been called, times I'd been expected to fix things that weren't mine to fix. When I landed, the air felt heavier, warmer, the kind of heat that slows everything down. I checked into the hotel without speaking much, followed the staff member down a stone walkway lined with water and greenery, and closed the door behind me. Later that afternoon, I sat by the pool with a glass of something cold and citrusy. The sound of water was constant, calming. I hadn't thought about the ranch all day. That was new. I took one photo. Nothing staged. Just me, a chair, the water behind me. I sent it to the family group chat. No caption. Then I turned my phone off completely and set it in the room safe. Back home, things didn't unfold the way they expected. I didn't see it, but I knew the sequence without needing to. The drive out, the gate locked, the front door open to exactly what they'd left behind. No cleaned floors, no stocked fridge, no quiet reset waiting for them. There's a certain kind of power in letting reality speak for itself. By the time I turned my phone back on 2 days later, there were missed calls, voicemails, messages that shifted from irritation to confusion to accusation. I listened to none of them. I skimmed just enough to confirm what I already knew. While they scrambled, I stayed where I was. I followed the schedule I'd set for myself. Breakfast early, walks in the morning heat, afternoons reading or swimming, evenings that ended without alarms or demands. Midway through the trip, I opened my laptop and logged into my banking app. I checked the account tied to the ranch expenses. Everything was clean, documented, separate. Exactly how I'd planned it years ago without realizing why. That was when I started thinking in steps. Step 1 was already done. I had stopped responding. Step 2 would be structural, not emotional. Step 3 would require one phone call. I didn't rush any of it. On the last night of the trip, I sat on the balcony as the sun went down. The light softened. The noise from the pool faded. I felt calm in a way that didn't ask for justification. When I boarded the return flight, my phone stayed off. Not out of fear, out of respect for the process I'd started. I didn't know yet how they would react once I made the next move. I only knew that I wouldn't be explaining myself. Some things don't need to be argued. I landed early in the morning. The airport was quiet. The kind of quiet that makes footsteps sound louder than they should. I drove home, unpacked slowly, and showered before checking my phone. I wanted my body settled before my attention went anywhere else. There were emails waiting. One from Karen. One forwarded message from Luke. A missed call from my dad. I didn't open any of them right away. I made tea instead and stood by the counter until the kettle clicked off. Then I sat down and thought in order. Step 1. No immediate response. Silence wasn't avoidance. It was space. Step 2. Separate emotion from logistics. Step 3. Move control away from conversation and into structure. I opened Karen's email. It was long, accusatory, focused on embarrassment, inconvenience, and how I had left them stranded. There was no mention of ownership, no mention of responsibility, just expectation. Luke's message was shorter. A few lines, sharp, no questions. My dad's voicemail was quiet. He said my name once, then paused. He asked me to call him back. He didn't defend anyone. He didn't apologize either. I didn't respond to any of it. Instead, I pulled out the folder I'd kept in a file drawer since my grandmother passed. Inside were copies of the deed, tax records, maintenance invoices, and insurance documents. Everything current. Everything in my name. I scanned the most relevant pages and saved them as a single PDF. That afternoon, I made one phone call. Not to my family. To a property manager recommended by a colleague. We spoke for 20 minutes. I explained the location, the condition, and what I wanted. Long-term, quiet, professional. No exceptions. She asked practical questions. I answered them. There was no emotion in the conversation at all. That was the point. By the end of the call, I had a checklist. Inspection, photos, listing timeline, estimated rental range. She emailed it to me before we hung up. That evening, I replied to my dad. One sentence. I'm handling the ranch through a property manager now. I'll send details when it's finalized. I didn't respond to Karen or Luke. There was nothing productive to say. The next day, Karen called. I let it go to voicemail. She called again. Then again. Each message carried more urgency than the last. I listened to none of them. I archived the emails and blocked Luke's number. Not dramatically, just cleanly. When the property manager visited the ranch later that week, she sent photos. The condition was exactly as I remembered. Nothing hidden, nothing exaggerated. Just facts. She asked if any family members had access. I said no. That was the moment it became real. Not emotionally, structurally. I forwarded the finalized management agreement to my personal email and filed a copy in the same folder as the deed. Everything in one place, everything clear. That night, my dad texted, "Karen is upset. She says you're shutting everyone out." I replied after a pause, "I'm setting boundaries." He didn't respond. I slept well that night. The meeting happened on a Wednesday afternoon. My dad asked if we could talk in person. Neutral ground. A quiet cafe near his office. I agreed, and nothing more. I arrived early and chose a table near the window. The place smelled like roasted coffee and citrus cleaner. Low music. No pressure to raise a voice. I ordered tea and waited. Karen arrived first. She didn't sit right away. She stood there for a moment, scanning my face like she was looking for something she could grab onto. Luke followed, phone already in his hand. My dad came last, shoulders slightly rounded, eyes tired. No one hugged me. That was fine. Karen started talking before anyone sat down. She said my name sharply, like punctuation. She said I had embarrassed them. She said I'd been irresponsible. She said family didn't treat each other this way. Her voice rose and fell, practiced and familiar. I let her finish. When she paused for breath, I placed my phone on the table between us, screen down. Not as a threat, as a marker. "I'm not here to argue," I said. My voice stayed even. "I'm here to explain how things will work going forward." Luke laughed under his breath. Karen crossed her arms. My dad stared into his cup. I slid a printed copy of the management agreement across the table, then the deed, then a simple one-page summary of access rules, dates, conditions, contact information. No commentary. "The ranch is under professional management now," I said. "All use goes through them. I won't be handling requests." Karen started speaking again, faster this time. She said I was overreacting, that it was just a misunderstanding, that I was making things complicated on purpose. I didn't interrupt. When she finished, I nodded once. "This isn't punishment," I said. "It's structure." Luke leaned forward. "So we're just cut off?" "Yes," I said. Not sharply, not softly, just clearly. My dad finally looked up. "You didn't tell us you were planning this." "I didn't need to," I replied. "I'm the owner." That was the moment the room shifted. Not dramatically, subtly. Karen's posture changed. Luke stopped smirking. The facts had landed, and there was nothing to push against. Karen tried a different angle. She spoke about loyalty, about everything she'd done for me, about how hurt she felt. I listened. Then I said, "I'm not discussing feelings today. I'm discussing boundaries." Silence followed, long enough to feel uncomfortable. I let it sit. "I won't be responding to messages about the ranch," I continued. "If you contact the property manager directly, they'll tell you the same thing." Luke shook his head. "This is extreme." "No," I said. "This is overdue." My dad cleared his throat. "So, that's it?" "For this topic," I said. I gathered the papers that didn't need to stay with them, left the copies that did, and stood. No one tried to stop me. Karen looked stunned. Luke looked annoyed. My dad looked smaller somehow. As I walked out, I didn't feel triumphant. I felt finished. Outside, the air was cool. I took a slow breath, unlocked my car, and sat there for a moment with my hands on the wheel. I didn't check my phone. There was nothing left to clarify. The consequences showed up quietly. Not all at once, not in a dramatic way, just in small, unavoidable facts. 2 weeks after the meeting, the property manager sent me an update. The ranch had been inspected, cleaned professionally, and listed. A family relocating for work had expressed interest. Long-term, stable. They asked about lease terms and maintenance schedules. Nothing emotional, just logistics. I approved the next steps the same afternoon. Karen emailed once more, shorter this time, less sharp. She asked if there was any flexibility for holidays. I didn't reply. The agreement was already in place, and flexibility was exactly what had caused the problem before. Luke tried a different approach. He sent a message from a new number, casual in tone, like nothing had happened. I blocked it without reading past the first line. My dad called a week later. We spoke for 10 minutes. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't apologize either. He said things felt different now. I agreed. He asked if I was happy. I told him I was calm. That seemed to satisfy him more than any explanation would have. When the lease was signed, I received a copy automatically. Dates, amounts, clear responsibilities. The ranch became what it was supposed to be all along, a place that functioned without requiring me to absorb the damage. The first rental payment hit my account on a Friday morning. I noticed it while checking balances before work. I didn't celebrate. I didn't tell anyone. I just updated my records and closed the app. At the office, my focus improved. Fewer interruptions, fewer background tensions. I finished projects faster. I stopped carrying conversations in my head that never led anywhere. Karen stopped reaching out altogether. Luke disappeared from my phone entirely. My dad sent a message once a month. Neutral, polite, acceptable. Nothing was repaired emotionally. That wasn't the goal. What changed was the system around me. The expectations, the access, the noise. One evening, I drove past the ranch on my way back from a site visit nearby. I didn't stop. I didn't need to. The gate was closed. The porch light was on. Someone else was living there now, taking responsibility for their own messes. I realized then that peace doesn't always arrive with relief. Sometimes it arrives with order. And order, once established, doesn't need defending. Life settled into something quieter after that. Not perfect, just steady. Most mornings now look the same. I wake up before my alarm, make coffee, and open the window while the city is still half asleep. I check my calendar once. I straighten the stack of mail on the counter. Small things, predictable things. The ranch no longer sits in the back of my mind like an unfinished task. The property manager sends monthly summaries. I review them, file them, and move on. No phone calls, no urgency, no emotional cleanup afterward. My relationship with my dad exists in a narrow lane now. Occasional texts, short updates, neutral ground. I don't push for more, and he doesn't ask. That balance holds because it has rules. Sometimes, late in the evening, I think about how long I mistook endurance for loyalty. How often I confused silence with kindness. I don't judge myself for it anymore. I did what I knew how to do at the time. Then I learned something better. A few months ago, a coworker mentioned her sister was the responsible one in her family. The way she said it caught my attention. I didn't interrupt. I just listened. There are a lot of people carrying quiet weight like that, thinking it's normal because no one ever told them it wasn't. I still keep the notebook. Not because I need it, but because it reminds me how clarity begins. One page at a time. Tonight, after this, I'll wash my mug, turn off the lights, and set my phone face down before bed. Nothing urgent waiting. Nothing unresolved. That's enough. If this story felt familiar, you're not alone. If you found something steady in it, I'm glad you stayed with me. If you'd like to hear more stories like this, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. It helps keep this space calm and consistent. Let me know in the comments what city you're watching from and what time it is for you right now. 2 popular stories will be queued up next, and I'll see you there.